My name is Ross Keller. I am 44 years old. For 11 years, I have been pulling cars out of the water with missing people still inside them. This is not a job, at least not a paid one. We are a small group of volunteers, 6 people from 3 states, and we do what law enforcement mostly does not. We methodically scan the bottoms of lakes, ponds, and reservoirs with sonar, in places where someone once vanished along with their vehicle. Police closed those cases as left and did not come back. We go out on the water with a boat and a side-scan sonar, and in about half the cases we find them. People think it is grim work. It really is not. What is grim is a family spending 20 years not knowing whether their father walked out on them or whether he had been lying 1.5 miles from home under 25 feet of water the whole time. We bring them an answer. A worse one than they were hoping for, but a real one. In 11 years, we have recovered 23 vehicles. Sonar shows the bottom as a blurry grayish image. A car on it is a sharp rectangle with a defined shadow. Your eye learns to tell it from a rock or a sunken log after a couple of seasons. We drop a marker, send down a camera, then I go in myself. Visibility in our waters is about 3 feet, sometimes less. You swim through green murk until the edge of a bumper comes out of it right in front of your mask. 23 vehicles. All of them made sense. Until last March, when we went to a lake in southern Missouri to look for Dana Whitlock. Dana disappeared in July of 1998. 29 years old, a nurse driving home after a night shift, and she never made it the last 12 miles. Her car was never found. The case was worked as a possible abduction. A former boyfriend was a person of interest for a few years. Then it was closed with nothing. Her mother was still alive, and she wrote to us herself. We found the car on the second day of searching. 17 meters down, about 40 meters from an old gravel access road that runs straight into the water. There used to be a boat launch there. Then the water level rose and the road stayed under the surface. A classic scenario. At night, in the rain, you see what looks like a level ramp, and you cannot see where it ends. Everything after that went the standard way. Police, sheriff, crane, yellow tape along the bank. Family members we asked not to watch. There were remains inside. Identified within 2 weeks. Dana Whitlock, confirmed. And there was one more thing. In the glove compartment, buried in the wet pulp that used to be documents and paper napkins, was a heavy Ziploc bag. The kind you use to keep things dry. The bag had spent 27 years underwater and held its seal. That is rare, but not unheard of. I had seen it twice before. Inside was a disposable camera, a plastic point and shoot, the kind sold at every gas station in the 90s. 27 exposure film. We sent it to a lab in Kansas City that specializes in developing damaged film. They work with law enforcement from several counties. The family wanted the photos. I wanted the same thing. After 11 years, I have learned that a small personal object means more to loved ones than any official document. The results came back a month later. The film was in better shape than anyone expected. They developed 26 of the 27 frames. The first 20 were ordinary. Summer, a backyard, someone birthday party, a cake with writing on it. A woman with short blonde hair. Dana, a dog. People in shorts in front of a grill. All from 1998, nothing unusual. The next 6 were taken on the shore of a lake, and they were photographs of our operation, not a similar location, not another recovery, ours. Taken from the bank, from the side, maybe 40 meters out. A yellow crane with its boom lowered, our boat by the buoy, yellow tape strung along the shore, 3 people in black wetsuits on a pontoon. One of them was standing with his back to the camera. And from the build and the way he had his hand on the tank, I recognized myself. Photographs of something that had happened 3 weeks before the film was ever developed. Shot on film that had spent 27 years sitting on the bottom under 55 feet of water. I went to the lab in person. The technician showed me the negatives on a light box, showed me the emulsion under magnification, showed me the edge of the film with its factory markings and batch code. He said the film was genuine, made in the 90s, shot on a single roll, no signs of cutting or reloading. Chemical degradation uniform across the entire length, meaning the last frames had spent exactly as long underwater as the first ones. He said he saw no way to fake this that he would not have caught. And he said he was not going to comment on it officially. I did not show those photos to the family. I told them the film had not survived. It is the only lie I have allowed myself in 11 years, and I do not regret it. But there was still the 27th frame. The lab had marked it as undeveloped, underexposed, almost blank. The report said no image present. I asked them to pull whatever they could from it. The technician said he would try and did not charge me. 2 weeks later, he sent a file. The frame was almost black, but not blank. Pulled up, it showed a shoreline. A different shore, not our lake. Gently sloping, with reddish clay instead of gravel. And in the background, above the waterline, the top of a concrete silo. 2 silos joined together, with a rusted ladder running up the side. I know that area. Flooded silos exist in 3 locations within 200 miles. But the joined pair configuration only exists in one place. I drove out there alone on a Sunday. Took the boat, took the scanner, told my team I was following up on an old tip. I found the car in 3 hours, 9 meters down, close to the bank, under a layer of silt. That is why nobody had seen it in 22 years. It was a pickup truck, disappeared along with its driver in 2004. A man, 53 years old. The case closed as a missing person. We brought him up a month later by the book with the sheriff. He had family left, a daughter and 2 grandchildren he never got to meet. I still have not told my team how I found that location, and I have not told them one other thing. In that pickup, in the driver door, in the side pocket, there was another Ziploc bag. And inside it, another disposable camera. A different one, older, different brand. I did not send it to the lab. It has been sitting in my desk drawer at home for 11 months. I have taken it out maybe 20 times. Held it. Put it back. I know what is on it. 20-something frames of someone ordinary life. A few shots of our recovery, taken from the bank by someone who was not there. And the last frame. The last frame will show me the next leg. That is what will not let me sleep. Not the dead. I have made my peace with the dead. That is the work. It is that I cannot decide what any of this is. Because if I develop the film, I will find another person, and another family will stop waiting. After 11 years, I do not know a better reason to do something. But then there will be another bag, and another. And I will spend the rest of my life going wherever I am being pointed. And I will never once find out who is pointing or why. I found 24 vehicles on my own, with sonar, with calculations, with weeks out on the water. The 25th was just handed to me, and I still do not know if it is a gift or a leash. The film is still in the drawer. I have not developed it. But last week I noticed something that made me genuinely sick. The frame counter on that camera reads 26, not 27. The way it would be on a roll that was never finished. Not 0, 26. Someone shot 26 frames and stopped. Right before the last one. My name is Chris Waters. I'm 38 years old, and I've been diving since I was 22. Not recreationally, professionally. Technical diving, cave diving, wreck diving. I've got certifications most people will never get. Not because they're hard to earn, but because most people are smarter than I am and don't go into places where you can die 9 different ways in 30 seconds. I'm not afraid of the dark underwater. Never have been. The dark down there is different from the dark on the surface. It's dense, almost solid, but calm. You shine your light and you see your own little piece of the world. Nothing else exists. It's almost like meditation. But what I found off the coast of Florida 2 years ago, I still can't explain it. It happened near Key Largo. I went out there for a week, a solo trip, no dive partner. I know solo diving breaks pretty much every safety rule there is. I know that. But I'd done it hundreds of times and always made it back. I rented a small boat and went out every day. Familiar spots, reefs I knew like the back of my hand, a wreck I'd already visited 4 times before. On the 3rd day, I decided to go a little farther than my usual route. No real reason, just to see what was out there. I dove down to 40 feet, about 12 meters, a comfortable depth for me. Visibility was good, the water was warm, fish drifting around everywhere. I swam along the reef, looking over the coral. And that's when I saw the opening. Not big, maybe 1 meter by 1.5 meters. At the base of the reef, half hidden behind a large boulder. If I'd been swimming 1 meter higher, I'd have missed it entirely. Cave diving has rules. First and most important, never go in without a guideline. A guideline is a rope you spool out behind you so you can find your way back out. Without one, it's easy to get lost in a cave. Easy to stay there forever. I didn't have a guideline. I looked at the opening, then at my gauge, 40 minutes of air left, then back at the opening. I swam inside. Just to take a look, I told myself. A couple meters and back. Inside, the cave opened up, much bigger than it looked from outside. I could swim through without ducking. The walls were covered in sponges and coral, my flashlight bouncing off them in this strange pink-orange glow. It was beautiful, genuinely beautiful. For a second, I forgot I was breaking every rule I knew. I kept swimming. 5 meters, 10. Then I stopped, because I saw bones. Human ones. I've seen enough to tell human from animal. They were lying on the bottom, scattered, but not randomly. Like someone had lain down and slowly come apart right where they fell. A skull stared up at me through empty sockets. My first instinct was to turn around and swim back. I almost did. But then I swept my flashlight farther in and saw the bones weren't alone. There were a lot of them. I counted as I kept swimming, slowly, carefully, trying not to stir up the silt on the bottom. 9, 12, 15 skeletons, different sizes, some clearly adults, some smaller, much smaller. I should have turned back. I knew that. Every meter deeper without a guideline was a gamble. I kept going. The cave took a turn, sharp, almost 90 degrees. Past the turn, the ceiling dropped, and I had to swim flat, hugging the bottom. Silt billowed up around me in a cloud, and visibility dropped to 0. I swam blind for about 2 minutes, just my flashlight pushing against milky murk. Then the ceiling suddenly rose, and I came out into a huge chamber. I hung there in the water, completely still. In the middle of the chamber, on the bottom, there was a chair, an ordinary wooden chair, old, darkened by the water, but intact. Not tipped over, not broken, just sitting there in the middle of an underwater chamber the way a chair sits in someone's living room. Someone was sitting in it, a skeleton. Spine straight, hands resting on the armrests. Head tilted slightly forward, like the person had dozed off, like they'd just sat down to rest and stayed that way. I swept my flashlight around the chair. In a circle, right on the bottom, legs crossed, sat the others. I counted. 18. 18 skeletons surrounding a single chair. All with straight spines, all with their heads turned toward the chair. Every single one of them was looking at the chair. I looked at the chair. It was empty. The skeleton I'd seen a second earlier, gone. It just wasn't there anymore. The chair sat empty in the middle of 18 others, all still facing it. And now, I didn't want to think about this. All 18 of them had turned. They were looking at me. I don't remember swimming back up. I was just suddenly on the surface, gasping for air, unable to stop. I hauled myself into the boat and collapsed on the floor of the cabin and lay there for about 10 minutes, staring at the sky. Then I grabbed my phone, called Rachel, my wife. She picked up on the second ring. "Chris, everything okay?" I couldn't answer right away. Just lay there, listening to her voice. "Chris, can you hear me? What happened?" "Everything's fine," I finally said. "Just wanted to hear your voice." She was quiet for a second. "You sure you're okay?" "Yeah. How are the kids?" "Already asleep." "Chris, you're acting weird. What happened?" "Nothing. Just had a good day out there. Missed you." I didn't tell her anything that day, or the next. And honestly, for a long time after that, either. The next day, I went back with a guideline and a camera. The opening was gone. I searched for 2 hours. The whole reef, up and down. The boulder was right where it had been. Behind it, solid rock. No opening, no cave. I don't do solo dives anymore. And I never go into a cave without a partner, not ever again. But sometimes at night, especially when the house is quiet and everyone's asleep, I think about that chamber, about the 18 skeletons looking at me, and about that empty chair, and about where the one who'd been sitting in it had gone, and whether it's still down there. My name is Jason Collins. I'm 36 years old, and I've lived my whole life in a small town called Grants Pass, Oregon. Grants Pass is the kind of place where everybody knows everybody. 17,000 people, one main street lined with coffee shops and antique stores, the Rogue River running right through the middle of town. Tourists show up in the summer, rafting, fishing, hiking. Then they leave. We stay. I've been a mechanic at an auto shop for 12 years now. Nothing glamorous about it. Grease, rust, customers who think their car broke down because someone cursed it instead of because they haven't changed the oil in 5 years. But I like it. I like figuring things out. I like when there's a clear cause and a clear fix. That matters for what I'm about to tell you. I'm not the kind of person who believes in the supernatural. Never have been. My dad was the same way. Practical, rational, both feet planted firmly on the ground. He taught me that there's an answer to every question if you dig deep enough. About 15 minutes outside of town, there's a lake. Locals call it Black Pine. It's small, maybe 300 meters across. Surrounded by dense conifer forest, with a narrow dirt road leading in, no signs anywhere. Tourists almost never find it. You have to know exactly where to turn off the highway, and then it's another 10 minutes through the woods. The water there is dark. Not dirty, clear, but dark, almost black in the deeper parts. That's from the peat on the bottom, common in forest lakes around Oregon. The bottom is soft. Your feet sink in a little when you stand on it. The pines around it are old and thick, their roots running right down into the water. It's always quiet there. Even the birds sound different, quieter, almost more careful somehow. My dad used to take me out there to fish when I was about 8. Later, I went on my own, as a teenager, then in my 20s. That lake was always my place, not somebody else's, mine. For the last 4 years, I went out there almost every day in the summer. Mornings, coffee, work until 6, then 40 minutes of driving and the lake. I'd park at the small clearing where the dirt road ends, walk the trail through the pines. There's a spot where the trees open up and the lake just appears all at once. I always stopped there for a second, just looked at it. Then I'd head down to the shore. Strip down, get in the water. It's cool even in July, maybe 65, 70 degrees. I'd swim for about 20 minutes, then lie on the bank and stare up at the sky through the pines. No phone. I always made a point of leaving it in the car. Just sky, water, the smell of resin and wet stone. After a hard day, it was the best thing I knew. Last summer, everything changed. But first, let me tell you about Dora McLean. I met her 2 years ago, in August. She was picking blueberries at the edge of the woods near the lake. A small woman, maybe 80 years old, wearing a sun hat and rubber boots. Her basket was nearly full. She asked me to help carry it to her car, an old Toyota pickup, probably from the 90s, parked in the same clearing as mine. While we walked, she asked if I came to the lake often. Almost every day, I said. Going on 4 years now. She nodded and looked at the water in this strange way. Not at me, just at the water. Like she was checking something. My mother used to say you shouldn't swim here after sundown, she said. I smiled, politely, the way you smile when an old woman says something you don't take seriously. Why's that? I asked. She said the lake remembers, Dora said simply. She set the basket in the bed of her truck and thanked me. Have a good evening. And she drove off. I went back to the lake, swam for a while, lay on the bank, watched the sky. I thought about what she'd said and didn't think about it at the same time. Just an old woman's words. The kind of local folklore every small town has a dozen versions of. But that same summer, I started digging through the archives at the local library. Not because of Dora. It just worked out that way. I was looking for old photographs of Grants Pass for a customer restoring an old house who wanted to know what it had originally looked like. I spent a few evenings in the library's archive section. Old newspapers, photographs, municipal records. And I came across a notice, small, on the 3rd page of the Grants Pass Daily Courier, from September 1923. Headline: 4th anniversary of the Black Pine Camp tragedy. 4th anniversary, which meant the actual tragedy happened in 1919. I read it slowly. It turned out that where the lake now sits, there used to be a summer camp for children, up until 1919. Camp Black Pine. Wooden cabins scattered among the pines, a big shared dining hall, a dock with wooden boats, a small beach. The camp had been running since 1887 and was fairly well known among wealthy families from Oregon and California. Parents would send their kids there for the whole summer. Swimming, hiking, the outdoors. In August of 1919, the rains came. Not the usual August showers, non-stop for weeks. The river upstream from the lake overflowed its banks. The water rose for 3 days. When it finally went down, where the camp had been, there was now a lake. The cabins, the dining hall, the dock, The boats, all of it went under, within a matter of hours. At the time, there were 42 children at the camp. The youngest was 5, the oldest 14, and 18 adults, counselors, cooks, the camp doctor. 60 people. Not one of them made it out. I sat there in the library holding that yellowed newspaper. Outside the window, Grants Pass went on with its ordinary evening. Cars, people, somebody's dog barking down the street. I thought about that dark water, about the peat on the bottom, about all those dark shapes down there I'd always assumed were just logs and roots. Logs, beams from the cabins. I'd dived down there dozens of times. The next day, I still went out to the lake anyway. Not to swim, just to sit on the bank and look at the water. The sky reflected off the surface. The pines stood around like always, quiet and cool. Nothing had changed, but I was looking at it differently now. I walked the whole way around the lake, for the first time in 4 years, the entire loop. Where the shoreline gets marshy and hard to cross, I pushed through anyway. And on the far side, where I'd almost never been, I saw it. An old wooden post sticking up out of the water. Gray with age, covered in moss, barely visible above the surface. I walked closer and looked down into the water. Beneath the surface, planks, even parallel, held together with crossbeams. A dock, the same dock from 1919, still standing on the lake bed, just submerged. I stood on the bank and stared through the dark water. Then I saw something deeper down. 3 or 4 meters below the dock, right on the bottom, something pale, rectangular. I looked closer. The water's dark, but in that one spot it seemed a little brighter. Maybe the bottom there was sandy instead of peat. A child's bed frame, metal frame, a tall headboard with curved bars. Standing upright on the bottom, not tipped over, not on its side. Upright, like someone had carefully set it there and walked away. I didn't dive in, didn't even consider it. I just stood there and stared. And then the water near the dock shifted. From below, not from wind, not from a fish. Something big and slow moved on the bottom. A dark ripple rose up from underneath and spread outward across the surface in rings. I backed away from the shore. My legs just carried me back on their own. I wasn't running, just walking fast through the woods to my car. Got in, sat there for about 10 minutes staring at the road, then drove home. I didn't swim there again that whole summer. I still went out to the lake almost every day. Habit turned out to be stronger than fear. I'd sit in my usual spot on the bank, watch the water. Think about the 70 children and adults still down there over 100 years later. In August, I ran into Dora McLean again, this time at the grocery store near the canned goods aisle. "Still going out to the lake?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, "but I don't swim anymore." She nodded, slowly, like she was confirming something she'd already known. "My mother used to say the lake lets everyone in," she said quietly. People walked past with their carts. Somebody was talking about milk prices. Quiet supermarket jazz played overhead. "But it doesn't always let them back out." "What does that mean?" I asked. She looked at me. For a long time, like she was weighing something. "How long have you been going there?" 4 years, maybe a little more." "And in all that time, nothing's ever happened?" "No." She was quiet for a moment, took a can of beans off the shelf and put it in her basket. "Then either it hasn't noticed you yet," she said quietly, not looking at me, "or it has, but it just hasn't decided." She moved on down the aisle. "Dora," I said, "what happened to your mother? Did she go to the lake too? The woman stopped, didn't turn around. My mother, she said after a pause, went to that lake her whole childhood, up until 1919. She kept walking. I stood there by the canned goods, trying to make sense of what she just told me. Up until 1919, Dora looked to be around 80. In 1919, her mother could have been, what, 5, 10? Maybe she'd been at that camp. Maybe she was one of the few who wasn't there that August. Or maybe she had been and survived somehow. I never saw Dora McLean again. I asked around. Nobody knew anyone by that name. The old man who runs the shop where I buy fishing gear said he remembered an old woman named McLean, but said she'd passed away about 5 years back. I still go out to the lake. Almost every evening, I sit on the bank. I watch the dark water. Sometimes, when the sun hits it at a certain angle and the water turns a little clearer, I can see dark shapes down below. Beams and planks from the cabins, the dock. And somewhere down there, a child's bed frame, still standing upright on the bottom, just like it always has. Sometimes I get the feeling something's looking back. But I don't swim, and I never stay past sundown. Because Dora was right. The lake remembers.